Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair of the Regional Development. And now I will take over as Chair of the Legislative Committee. So welcome, everyone. I will call the Legislative Committee to order. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Carter?
Here.
Fretham?
Here.
Mas-Castillo?
Here.
McDonough?
Here.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Here.
McGuire?
Here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved. So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Has been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please take the roll on the agenda?
Carter?
Aye.
Fretham?
Aye.
Mas-Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
Aye.
McGuire?
Thank you all very much. We now have the minutes from our last committee meeting before you. They were in the documents provided. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
So moved. Second. Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Matis-Castillo, seconded by Commissioner Fretham. Thank you very much. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Carter?
Aye.
Fretham?
Aye.
Mas-Castillo?
Aye.
McDonough?
Aye.
Ortega?
Aye.
Reinhardt?
Aye.
McGuire?
Aye. Thank you so much. The minutes were just approved. I would just say those were for the minutes from December 17th of 2019. That was our last committee meeting, was a year ago. So we've been meeting a lot, though. Our subcommittee has been, our working group has been meeting every week, I think, since then. So I want to just give special thanks to the vice chair of the committee, Commissioner Matis-Castillo, and then, of course, Jen O'Rourke, our Director of Government Relations, Melissa Finnegan in our Government Relations team, and then Cassie Fitzgerald, while Melissa Finnegan was on maternity leave, filled in, she did a great job. So just thanks to everyone and to our staff, Melissa Jamrock and Ethan Ostin, just for everything that everybody's been doing throughout the year to get us to this place today where we are having a committee meeting on this. On our legislative state and federal platforms. I just want to give you a little background on how we got to here. We'll remind all of you that on November 10th, we did have a board workshop where our staff presented proposed drafts of our 2021 state and federal platforms. There we highlighted our legislative accomplishments and we gave a brief federal update. We were able to have discussion on those items that were in our platform carried over from last year, and then we discussed new ideas and new suggestions by commissioners. So these and other changes will be reflected on and acknowledged as we go through this current draft of our platform. So as we act on this as a committee of the whole, we will then recommend this approval of the revised draft platform in its entirety at a board meeting, which is scheduled for final approval on December 15th. So that's in 2 weeks. We'll be doing that. So this is our meeting when we can make any additional changes, any suggestions, also on this platform. And so that is the purpose of today, is to review our current status. So first of all, I'm going to ask for a motion to get the state platform before us. So I'll ask for a motion to approve a resolution to approve our state platform.
Madam Chair. Approval, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I will second it.
Second by Commissioner Carter.
Okay.
Thank you for that. So now we will have the discussion on it, and then we will vote on it after our discussion. So thank you very much, and I welcome Jennifer O'Rourke, our Director of Government Relations, who's on our call. Thank you, Director O'Rourke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe everyone can hear me okay? Thank you. I'd like to walk through some of the changes and additions since we last met at our workshop on November 10th. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the brand new look that we have with both our state and federal platform that's in front of you today. I'd like to give Jackie Waters a high five and a special credit for that. She's part of our the communications team that we are with. We do have a shorter document, and it's tied to our strategic priorities, which I know is a goal you as the board and we as staff both share. I think it's the best way to showcase our work at Ramsey County, reflecting the thoughtful objectives and themes that we all work to align our work around. When we last met in the workshop, we took feedback such as the topic of waivers. We heard from Commissioners McDonough and Fretham and the County Manager O'Connor, who wanted to see stronger language in our support for the good work that's been done thus far in working with other partners. We've added that. Chair Carter asked us to work on the immigration reform language and make that more comprehensive. We have added that. A new position came forward that some of you are familiar with, dealing with extended juvenile jurisdiction. It's also referred to as EJJ. This came from both Chair Carter and the staff side, and we've added that in the state platform. We've also included better descriptor language on our important River's Edge bonding topic that's listed in both the federal and the state platforms. Let me look. We will be fine-tuning some of the language around housing, housing stability, if you will, in terms of homelessness and affordability. This is just too important of a topic to not get exactly right. And obviously there's so much work being done, as the county manager highlighted in his comments. And just over the last week, I want to do one more loop around with staff and others to make sure that we're all in sync and moving forward and accounting for everything that we want to get done. I would just highlight between now and final passage on the 15th, we go before the executive committee tomorrow to connect one more time with them. We have 2 legislative town halls coming up, one with staff and one with the public, both early next week. I don't think back to the housing and the other items, I don't think there's anything controversial per se, but we're looking forward to working with you and others to make sure that we're all in agreement moving forward. I have a few more comments to add in the federal section of the bill. Not the bill, our platform, but these come from our federal lobbyists, the Lockridge team out in DC, and that's just tightening up some of the language around the FAST Act and other transportation reauthorization, making sure that everything we want is spelled out well on the COVID relief front, and then again, aligning our work around housing to make it more appropriate. Madam Chair, that's all I have for you today. And I have Melissa Finnegan on the line too, and we're both happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director O'Rourke and Director Finnegan, Co-Director Finnegan. I have to see what I should call. I just want to point out that, of course, the platform, as we've seen it, and it is a beautiful layout. I want to give kudos, obviously, also to our communications department. I do love the new layout, and it's marked up on this version. It will not be marked up on the final version, but it's really good to see, you know, where we've removed certain items because we've either passed them or it's on someone else's agenda where we're not taking the lead, and then so if it's underlined, it's new, just for all the viewing public, for people that are looking at this, and if it's crossed out, it will no longer be on here. But these will not be markups that will be on the final version. So I just want to ask one question, just sort of a clarifying for everyone's information. We've done in the past, we've actually indicated like whether Ramsey County is taking a lead on this or whether someone else is taking the lead on that. And I noticed that we haven't put it in this document. So could you just comment on the decision to not put that in as a highlight? And, you know, I know that we have, and I really appreciate, you know, our top priorities, which you've indicated on page 3. And I really appreciate the page numbers on page 3, that these are really our top priorities. So we know we'll be, you know, leading on all of those. But for some of the other specific things, if we are taking a lead on them, or if we're supporting other people on that, could you just comment on that concept.
Certainly, Madam Chair and others. I think that decision was made just in terms of keeping the document cleaner, more concise, and we can certainly find a way to share and communicate better the areas we are leading in. I would point out in the past that it hasn't always been completely up to date when we've listed other entities who are supposedly leading on an issue. That's how I would answer that, Madam Chair.
Yeah. And that's fine. I just want to say, like, I just know one example, like eminent domain revisions. It's not that that was actually done. And this is an issue that I care about. And I know we all do. But we know that the county engineers are taking that on. So we're just not going to put it in our platform. We'll support that agenda. We'll support their agenda. But we are not going to have it on our agenda because we want to make sure we're very focused on the things that we have in this platform. So that was just an example. And I appreciate that response. But I just know that that's another difference in this platform versus other platforms. And I think that's a good move. So I'm looking for hands up and then I will ask other questions. Okay, let's see. I have first Commissioner Fretham and then Commissioner Reinhardt. Sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Chair McGuire. I know that Jen and Melissa and I had spoken about child care reforms. Last year, I had requested adding this item about supporting state compliance with background study and minimum provider requirements. Some of that passed in the 2020 session pre-COVID. But there are still some outstanding items. I want to throw out there that as we convene the child care policy action group subcommittee, from that work, there may be suggestions that come that would further modify our platform ideas for child care reforms. And that also, right now it's currently placed in strengthening families, which I think is excellent. I think we could also consider what role investments in child care infrastructure could fit into the economic competitiveness and inclusion section as well, especially as we reflect on our need to get back to work post-COVID and how COVID has impacted child care providers and the number of people who will be in need of child care in order to go back into offices and physical locations to work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you do highlight, just a thought that I had too about this, the layout of this, which I do appreciate, but it does put things in categories where we think they do cross over. So we just have to be aware that there's crossover, because I'm going to ask about another item that I think crosses over, and I'm thinking where we look for it and where legislators will look for these items. So thank you. Did you have any other questions, Commissioner Fretham? Commissioner Fretham.
I don't think that because we haven't convened the group, we have anything specific to put in there, but whether it's possible to put some sort of placeholder potentially, and whether just noting that child care infrastructure investments are going to be needed to be supported for our workforce needs going forward.
So I do appreciate that question, and I will bring up my other question, because I think that goes to this issue of cross service area issues, because this is where legislators might look for that. I do think childcare is a huge part of our workforce solution. So yes, maybe we think about how we might put that in. My question was on the legacy funds. We have a chair, Representative Lilly will be chairing that committee, and I see that we have, continuing legacy funds for our libraries, but I want to continue legacy funds for our parks and all of these and other areas. So I'm wondering if that's noted somewhere in here as well. So it brings up where it wouldn't be necessarily under libraries, but it would be under our parks and infrastructure. So I'm putting it out there as it's for us to all think about where we can put these, just like childcare could be in workforce solutions as well. So thank you for that comment. And clearly this agenda will be or this platform will be a living and breathing document, but it will be printed, initially. And so what's printed will be out there. So we want to acknowledge as much as we can in the front, knowing that there will be additions and corrections as we go. But we definitely wanted to start out as comprehensive as possible in the beginning. So I don't know if you have any comments on that, Director O'Rourke?
Certainly, Madam Chair, I'd love to comment on that. I would just point out, in the interest of keeping the document succinct and readable for both the viewing public and our legislators who have a lot on their plates, I think it's best that we keep it a smaller document. And if you really dig into it, you could find so many areas where our platforms crisscross and match up with different strategic priorities. I think adding parks, a better position on parks is a good thing we can do before the next meeting. But I would also point out, this is just a document. The important part is our work at the legislature and all of your relationships with the members. And I know a lot of you have very strong relationships with our delegation. We're very fortunate that many of our delegation members have committee chairs. Representative Dave Pinto is chairing the Early Ed Committee. Representative Lilly is chairing the Legacy Committee. These were just all announced last night. I know in our short little group, I know we have a lot of excitement about where our Ramsey County legislators are chairing committees, and hopefully we can get some good work done there. So I would just wrap up with just pointing out that these are important. We do have this document. It will be on our website. It will be something we hand out to legislators and share with them when we're able to see them in person and mail to their houses. But the important work is being at the Capitol, being in these committees, talking to legislators and the public about advancing Ramsey County priorities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. We'll continue to think about it. I'll continue to think about it as well, though, Commissioner Fretham, and I know we all will, that maybe we don't print as many. Maybe we, adjust it and then print more as we go. So we can see how that goes. All right, we have Commissioner Reinhardt and then Commissioner McDonough.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Oh, did you have your hand raised, Commissioner Reinhardt? Yeah, you did.
You called on me.
Yeah.
Yes, I had. I just lowered
your hand. I was like, yes.
I try to lower it as soon as you call on me so that I don't forget.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
That's what I did.
Good job.
Okay. Madam Chair, I think that there's a very easy way to deal with some of the issues that I know will be coming up today as well. The fact is you don't have to add another plank to the platform because so far the two issues that have been raised, and I'm about to raise another one, are already part of our platform. And so it's a matter of maybe adding a word or two. For example, on the legacy, where we are talking about the legacy funds, and I'm assuming it's the same legacy funds that are for libraries as it is for the environment, to simply reference both of those in our existing platform, or what was presented to us today, I mean. And so it's not adding something that's not already there in some format. And I would suggest that we can add that. We have things on workforce. The support that Commissioner Fretham was talking about could easily be added in a word or two within what we already have. So now I'm going to move to one that actually yesterday the Housing and Redevelopment Authority leadership met, and Commissioner Matas-Castillo brought up some issues. And again, it's right in line with what we already have in there, is some ideas regarding, or two ideas, actually one if you put it together, are increasing public funds to preparing people for home ownership, and then trying to practice reforms and reduce barriers to affordable home ownership. Again, it's within what we already have. It's just making sure that it is spelled out through literally a few words, not a new plank, because it isn't. Now, I'm going to let Commissioner Matas Castillo talk a little bit more about that so that we can have a document that simply reflects some of the things we're talking about. Now, if somebody today comes up with a brand new idea, that's a whole different story because we wouldn't have time to fully vet it. But I think so far, the two things that I've heard are easily included in existing language with just a minor tweak here or there. So it's not expanding our platform because, yes, we would be continually expanding it otherwise. And sometimes there's going to be things that will come up during the legislative session, as always, that we are going to want to add or change in some way. But I think the basic document itself is usually not reprinted. And so I think now is the time that we can add those few words that just are clearly stated, because I think the legacy dollars, I mean, I'm on the Clean Water Council, so I obviously have a lot of input on that and want to make sure that it's included in our platform because those legacy funds are really critically important to our libraries, but also to our public works and as far as the drainage issues and things like that, but also to parks, but especially to parks. So that would be my suggestion. I think we'll see what else comes up today, but so far, including the housing, adding a couple of words regarding housing and home ownership, I think is pretty easily done. And I guess I would ask you as chair, but also Jen O'Rourke, if that makes sense, because we're not changing anything wholesale. We're clarifying with a few words within the document we have.
Thank you. I think that's definitely something we'll do, right? Right, Director O'Rourke? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for
so that does sound, I just wanted to make sure that I got that confirmation from Jen, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank
and,
you.
And I would ask that Commissioner Matas Castillo, if she doesn't have her hand up, that you would call on her regarding that so that we could get that clarification within our platform before we vote on it on December 15th. Thank you.
And if you'll indulge me, yes, Commissioner McDonough, I did call on you, but I'll call on Commissioner Matas Castillo to continue that conversation, and then Commissioner McDonough. Thanks.
Yes. Thanks, Madam Chair. And really quickly, thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt, for bringing that up. And I did share language with Jen yesterday to talk through, but just clarifying, we want to make sure that we're adding language that is around home ownership as well. And also that means keeping people in their existing homes, so homeowners that are in their houses. As we know, in the previous decline of the economy about 10 years ago, we saw a lot of foreclosures. And so to make sure that there are resources, again, available around foreclosure prevention as well. So the language would read, increasing public funds and attention to the preparation of homeowners, the production and the preservation of affordable home ownership, so 3 Ps, and then advancing policy and practice reforms that reduce barriers to affordable home ownership. And so basic language that we can add and tweak prior to the next meeting. And that was shared with our HRA staff as well, so.
Thank you.
And
thank you so much.
Madam Chair, if I could, I think that although the language that was cited is what the Homeownership Alliance or whatever the group is called has, but I think that there's a way to make that shorter and still get the same message across within our housing policy.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioner McDonough. And then Commissioner.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick questions or comments. And first, I want to acknowledge the effort that's gone into streamlining and being succinct and tying it to the mission, vision, values, and goals. I think is really, really important. Getting it down to 12 pages is great. 10 would be better. I think it's a much more powerful document, and we get paid attention much more. I think all of us have been in legislative office when they say, give me your top three, give me your top five. They don't want all this other stuff, right? And we need to pay attention to that. And I think, you know, Jen has pointed out, the legislative session is the session itself, and we can be responsive and we can be a part of whatever starts to move forward. But for us in our document, we are in a much better position when we have a document that gets paid attention to. And I think you've done a nice job here putting this together with the input that we put out. So I just really want to acknowledge that and help us stay focused in on that as we also are prepared to be able to be responsive as things start getting legs or wind in the sail at the legislature, that we can be a part of that and making sure our position is a part of those types of things. And sometimes we'd like to try to get ahead of everything, so we put everything in a document and it becomes a book rather than something that we can really have people to read and pay attention to. So there's that balance, and I think you did a nice job, Jen, you and your team. Two quick comments, and I appreciate the list you sent out of the committees, and I really want to acknowledge, I think there's some positive things happening here, especially in the House with the Homelessness Prevention Subcommittee for Housing that's going to be chaired by Representative Gomez, I think is needed. And I think the sooner we can connect with Representative Gomez to get a sense of what her vision is on what that is, but also helping her understand that the prevention of homelessness is really attached to people not losing their housing, and for people to have the availability of housing at that 30% AMI, and making those connections. But the sooner we can get an understanding of what Representative Gomez and her vision for that is, the better I think we can help influence that committee. And then it's, you know, sometimes it's not as obvious, but this new committee that Representative Fisher has on behavioral health policy, I think is really going to be important in our efforts for keeping people healthy. You know, whether it's chemical dependency or mental health issues, those are the big drivers in our homeless population. Those are the big drivers on why people lose housing in the beginning. So I think having a conversation with Representative Fisher, again, these are new committees or subcommittees that, you know, the chairs are going to have a vision, but they're open to us helping frame that foundation for them to be able to focus in, especially this first session here with these committees. So I think that's going to be really important. Thanks for the good work.
Excellent points, Commissioner McDonough. I agree that right, keying into those new committees will be really important, and how our platform does match up with that. So thank you, Commissioner Carter.
Thank you so much. It's already been stated in appreciation of the new format, and I just want to echo that for one thing, and also appreciate the balance that's been struck between comprehensiveness and completeness, and also the kind of net appearance and focus that we need. In particular, page 3, that really hones the focus there at the potential sacrifice of not highlighting everything, but really helping us to drill down and in on those things that we are trying to achieve. I also wanted to compliment the change in presentation of our River's Edge work, and that states the river's deck and focuses us on, yes, this is a comprehensive opportunity, or an opportunity to participate in the comprehensive development of the work along the riverfront. But this is very specific. It is about that public realm as a part of the work that is happening, and the important part for which public support and help is needed. And I think that honed vision there also will help us to work with our partners and legislators early, so that we are able to get the cooperation and support that we need. This is still very important. Timing is everything. Being able to exercise those portions of the project which are ready to go, and also know that it is staged so that we are timing it, in fact, for the recovery and the opportunity to grow Ramsey County. So I just wanted to say thank you for that presentation. And also I'm looking very, very forward to the approach that we will take together with our partners this year in that regard.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Carter. So now I'm going to throw a loop to my government relations team, because we've been talking about so many things. And as we've been saying, it's great to focus. It's great to be, succinct. And we know that that's more effective. So I've been pushing AMC on this, and Commissioner McDonough, you just brought it up, but it's all about, it's the mental health, it's behavioral health, it's how this is a part of a lot of what we do. And I'm just wondering if we make it one of our top priorities, behavioral mental health. But what do you all think about? I mean, I like this one pager, and Commissioner Carter was just on it, page 3. What are our legislative top priorities? I love all the ones we have, but we don't have mental health in there. And I mean, it does, do we want to call that out as an overarching issue? Or do we leave it the way it is and call it out in our other areas? I mean, this is something we've struggled. I mean, we, as a legislative committee, we talk about all these issues, and Jen has been great trying to keep us honed down, focused, and I'm trying to keep myself focused, but it's just so hard when I see these really major issues. I know Ramsey County League of Local Governments has taken it on as their big issue. Like I said, I've been pushing AMC to make it a priority for them. So just curious what the rest of the board thinks. Oh, sorry, everybody's raised their hand. Sorry, I'm not even looking. All right, I'm gonna go to Commissioner Fretham, then Commissioner Reinhardt.
Oh gosh, I think I was the last one to jump in. But
sorry. Okay, I was just going from the bottom up now. I just didn't know who raised their hand first.
It's okay.
Okay, you can go first. Okay, yeah.
If we could add it as a 5th priority, there's nothing I would take off this list. But if we're comfortable having 5 top priorities, I definitely think acknowledging mental and behavioral health needs, investing in them, and recognizing the role they play in many other areas, I think would be a priority that I would support.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm just going from bottom up on my list. Commissioner Reinhardt, and then Commissioner Mattis Castillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like that idea, and because it is part of our platform. Another reason to put it in as a priority is because of this new subcommittee. And the fact that we would be able to point to that. I do think it's important that it's behavioral health, which includes mental health and addiction issues. It kind of does permeate through the rest of our platform. So I would add it as a 5th and within the priorities. Again, that doesn't expand what we have within our platform, but rather elevates it to a priority. So, but with that subcommittee especially, it does show that the legislature is paying attention to it, and that may help us as well by recognizing that within our priorities.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Mattis Castillo.
Well, I raised my hand and I had a different feeling, but listening to Commissioner Fretham and Commissioner Reinhardt, I feel a little persuaded. If I'm honest, I feel my initial thought was just like we talked earlier about how, one item plays into many areas across the county. I feel like mental health and chemical health plays a huge part in lots of things. And so I didn't initially think we needed to call it out. The other thing I was looking at is in the rest of our platform, I don't see it. We have mental health listed once, but it's pretty specific and less broad. And now I can't find it again, but so I can be persuaded. I don't know that we necessarily need to call it out, but I also don't see a problem with doing it either. So
thank you, Commissioner Mattis Castillo. Commissioner Carter, and then Commissioner McDonough.
So thank you. I feel slightly different about it as well, and perhaps because of the participation in human services budgeting conversations together with DHS and the Association of Minnesota Counties. I understand a little bit how in the AMC agenda in human services, mental health is a part of that priority that focuses on actually the potential redesign of services. In our platform, inside Residents First, we do have the human services program improvements focus. And a bullet within that area is continuing health and human services waivers. Another is supporting modernization of human services programs, processes, and systems and technology. Clearly, that includes a broad brush around mental health. The concerns that we have for human services are huge in the coming couple of years, with the budget concerns that exist and the knowledge that with human services being such a large part of the state's budget, that area is likely to suffer the proposal of multiple cuts. And we are working very, very dedicatedly to ensure that that's balanced, that it comes together with redesign. Inside the mental health area, the ability to do the work that we need to do with flexibility is critical and important. But I almost, if we're going to raise a priority in that area, would support the priority being that which we've pointed to in our Residents First area. And that would be human services program improvement overall, including mental health and chemical dependency. So that, for your consideration, I think is something that is very, very important, that we look at all of what will happen within human services and not just that particular area. Although it's big, it's important, and it's critical to all of the work that we're doing. I think the concern for damage to human services overall looms large.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner McDonough.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I'd actually be supportive of adding a line here on the mental health piece, not getting into a whole page of things that we would support underneath it, but maybe this is consistent with what Commissioner Carter said, and maybe not. But I think it's important for us on how we frame that up. And the issue around behavioral health, that to me kind of is this overarching umbrella that continues to affect us and affects the people in our community who we are serving, is the issue around parity. And we continue to segment behavioral health. We can continue to segment chemical dependency and mental health, and we treat it differently than the individual's well-being and physical health, or even things in human services. So calling it out as a priority, but attaching it to parity in policy and funding, I think gives us this overarching umbrella to continue to elevate the conversation around mental health and chemical dependency or behavioral health, whatever terminology you want to use here, and really highlight that there is a tremendous amount of inequity in how we fund it and how we develop policies around it. And if we elevate this as a priority in this overarching piece and attaching it to the parity and the inequities, I think would be helpful for us moving forward, depending whatever would develop, whether it's in this new policy committee or whatever's developing throughout the committees, whether it's health and human services, whether it's in health in general, we can be prepared to be responsive as long as we're looking at it through the lens of parity.
Thank you, Commissioner McDonough. Appreciate that. Commissioner Reinhardt, again, or do you have, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with Commissioner McDonough on adding that. And I do think that even though we have a larger issue, actually the other priorities are also part of larger issues that we will get into as well. And so I think, I don't think it takes away from the human services aspect, but I think just putting in a priority regarding human services is not focused enough as far as a priority, because it could mean anything to anyone. So I really do believe the behavioral health, another bullet for behavioral health, and then some of the other things that we already have in our platform are important. So I would like to see that as a priority and called out as such. Maybe we do need to beef up what we have in the actual document itself to support that, and that's fine. But I think it really is so critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reinhardt. Commissioner Ortega, and then Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Ortega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with everything that's being said regarding mental health. We've been having this in our platform for 25 years in one way or the other. But I do think that Commissioner Carter brings up a good point, and that is that we can list everything we want, but I guess I would like to know where we're heading with the budget and the deficit and what potential cuts we're facing and where that discussion is. Because we might have to be playing more defense than offense when it comes to human services. We want to make sure that the cuts aren't too deep in critical areas of our work. So while this is about what we want, we need to be cognizant of what are the potential cuts that we're facing and where they are and how that impacts us and what is our response to that. That's pretty much it, Madam Chair.
Yeah, great point, Commissioner Ortega. And we know the budget just came out, yesterday, and so we are faced with that, right? With the reality of our state's budget and where we will get cut, where counties will feel a burden. So I think I see it I'm looking on page 3 because this may become our one pager for our legislators. But maybe we beef up that our stable, sufficient funding that we really call out. We need the funding in all of these areas. Are you thinking we call it out as a priority, Commissioner Ortega, or that we can still call out behavioral services, but maybe we beef up one of the stable, sufficient funding in that part? Because I agree with you on what you said. So, and I know that Jen and Melissa are taking notes wildly so that we can capture the comments that we're all making. And while I'm doing that, Commissioner Carter has her hand raised, and then Commissioner Matas-Castillo. Commissioner Carter.
Certainly appreciating the direction in which the conversation is heading. I believe that we won't wordsmith it today.
No.
But that the concern is for the preservation of that stable and even maybe adding flexible funding to support the work that we're doing in this area. And I really like adding the parity piece for mental health and chemical health issues. So I know we won't finish it today. I think that we're hearing the concern for making certain also that it is contained also on page 5 underneath the residents first, such that what we are attempting to build forward is located clearly there as well for mental and chemical health and the preservation of critical funding as we pull it forward into that first front priority. So I appreciate all of the conversation and certainly continue to be concerned for that entire area. Understand the priority of parity for those specific areas of chemical and mental health. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter, and thank you for reminding us. We will not finish the wordsmithing today, but just to make sure that we get the sense of the entire board on where we might want to put these things, and then we'll be getting some drafts, I think, before the next board meeting on what the sense of the committee has been for the final board vote. Commissioner Matas-Castillo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To Commissioner Ortega's point about the budget, We just got news, we all just received the news that there's actually a $641 million surplus, not a deficit, and they've reduced the forecasted deficit of the out biennium down to 1.2 billion from 4.7 billion. So we're sitting in a much better place. That's good news for all of us. So thanks for raising that question, Commissioner Ortega. It's hot off the presses while you were asking. So they responded just to your question, I think the state did. But the one thing is, as we're talking about this, we are using lots of different terms. And so I'm getting confused. I've heard behavioral health, I've heard mental health, I've heard chemical health. They're not interchangeable necessarily. I think there's a way for us when Jen and team go back to talk about what it is we're trying to get to, but I've heard commissioners use different terms, and they're not all the same, and they're very different areas of practice, of service, of need. And so I just want us to be careful that what our intent is what the language that we're using. We started this conversation about mental health, and then we talked behavioral, and so it's different areas, which I think gets to the point that Commissioner McDonough and Commissioner Carter have raised about the need for parity and exactly what it is we're trying to get to and what we're trying to address. So I'll just leave it there and just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you for that. Yes, Commissioner Ortega, thank you. Commissioner Ortega.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to interject. Maybe what we need to do is just to get a better handle on what the state budget is going to be and where those cuts are projected might help us at least short term to see where we need to target and focus. Trista's Commissioner Mata Castillo is correct in terms of the terms and what they mean. And if we're going to go and advocate and lobby as commissioners, we should be as targeted as possible, because budgets are short term, right? They're for 2 years. And so I just want to make sure that we're not so broad that it doesn't mean anything. Just thinking off the top of my head.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Ortega, and I appreciate all of the contributions. I think this was a really good discussion, and I'm hoping that I'd like to ask Director O'Rourke or Finnegan, Melissa, if you have any thoughts or any questions on any of this, because what we'll be doing then is, pulling this together in some language that we think captures our conversation, and then we'll be presenting it before we present it as a board, document. Our committee will meet, or our working team will meet before we, can present it as a final board document for approval at the board meeting. Any comments, Jen or Melissa?
Sure, Madam Chair, if I could jump on, I'm going to try to address several questions or comments that came up just to add some clarity to the situation. I'll start with Commissioner Matas Castillo's comment about the budget deficit and the budget surplus, and then I'll add in another phrase you all know, the rainy day fund. So if you go back to May or earlier this late last session, there was a projected budget deficit in the neighborhood of $4.6 billion. If you think about that $4.6 billion, it's now shrunk down to more like $1.27 billion of a budget deficit. So it's a pretty substantial change and a pretty great place to be in. I believe there's more of a official announcement around noon with the governor commenting and whatnot in the various caucuses, but some of this has been on social media, which is where we've gotten this information. The other point on this I would point out is that there's roughly $2.4 billion in the rainy day fund. New Commissioner Jim Showalter at MMB has pointed out that kind of the scenario we're in with the pandemic is certainly a rainy day fund by his determination. So we'll see where all those discussions go. But I would encourage you to follow social media and read the Star Tribune and other paper outlets to learn more about that in the next couple of days. to address Commissioner Ortega's concern about the state budget and learning where those cuts are. No one knows where those cuts are yet because the governor is putting together his budget and coming out with that in January. So right now there's discussions going on, and I know DHS has been having a working group of sorts that Chair Carter and Melissa Finnegan, our government relations specialist, have both been participating in. AMC has been a big part of that, along with a couple of other commissioners from around the state. But the whole idea is to kind of just learn where the money is being spent, learn where there could be efficiencies, learn where cuts are survivable or where changes could be made. And I'd certainly invite Commissioner Carter or Melissa to come back to that when I'm done here. On the discussion that just occurred regarding mental health and whatnot, I think it's totally appropriate for us to add language in the beginning of our document, which talks about our legislative priorities. There's room to do that in both the state and the federal platforms. We can certainly add flexibility around funding. That's part of our principles. And I know Melissa's a great writer and can come up with language in the short term about tightening up and strengthening our positions in this area. And we'll work with all of you who are interested, along with staff from Health and Wellness, to make sure we have all this right. I would point out that if we're to stay on schedule, the board will be passing this document in its final form on December 15th. It would be good if we did not have to bump that out over the Christmas holiday and the new year, because it takes us quite a bit into January, and we've done that other years, and it's just a much smoother transition, I think, with a new biennium, new legislators, new chairs, that we want to come running out of the gate with our agenda as tight as possible.
Thank you, Jen and Melissa. I'm going to propose that we pass this out of this committee with the provisions that they'll make the changes that we've talked about, so we can move it on to the final board, to our board meeting. So it's been moved and seconded, and so if the mover and the seconder accept the conversation that we've been having, making the changes that we've suggested, and that we'll be continuing to work on the language in these next few weeks, or next week, because then the board documents will be out after next week. And so we can then, have the final approval on the language at our board meeting. Does that make sense to all of you? And Commissioner Reinhardt, you want to comment on this?
Well, actually, I had put my hand up before you made that comment. So, but I do, I would certainly think that makes sense. I think that the changes that we have, or what we have talked about, I am confident in our staff to be able to accommodate that and put the language in format that will keep this document succinct while still conveying what we have talked about here today. And I actually put my hand up because I couldn't help myself. Because when I think about the rainy day fund, if we had monsoons in Minnesota, that's what it would be right now. I mean, so rainy day fund, I mean, what we're going through right now, obviously, is so much more than that. And so we don't want to just take it and go, okay, for the state legislature or even for our own budget. We didn't just say, okay, well, we've got that, so we'll just use that and everything will be fine. Because that's not sustainable in the long term either, as I said at the county board meeting earlier. So, but I just found it interesting. We talk about rainy day funds and really do look at it as, okay, well, we've got a cushion. But right now, with everything that our constituents and everybody is going through, yeah, it feels more like a monsoon, if I'd ever been in one. So the only thing I can compare it to are tornadoes, but that doesn't seem quite enough. So for what we're happening right now.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Commissioner Reinhardt. So with that, I am going to say that this conversation is ended now on the state platform, and that we will, seeing no further discussion, that we will take a vote on the motion that was made with the amendment that, I mean, it's going to incorporate the changes that we've discussed in this meeting. Does that reflect what people are good with on the vote? Okay. So will the clerk please take the roll?
Carter,
Yes.
Fretham,
Aye.
Mas Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And thanks so much, Jen and Melissa, for all of your work on this. Now we're going to move on quickly to the federal platform. I know we have an executive session to get to, but I do believe our federal platform we can, we can do in a few minutes here. Jen, you tell me, but we know if we want to get that passed on as well. So, Jen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be incredibly fast because I've covered most of this already. We made some changes in this part of the document to reflect immigration reform that Commissioner Carter asked we make stronger. We added specifically the River's Edge project to this part of the document. We will be tightening up the housing and the mental health parts of this because they kind of go in sync with the state platform, if you will. It's important we have the same messaging on the federal form. I believe that's all.
Move approval.
Thank you. I was just going to ask. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Thank you. And so, yeah, are there any other, any other discussion on the federal platform that we need to allow here? Thank you for all of your work on that. There being no further discussion, I will entertain a motion. Then we've got the motion in the second. Let's take, will the clerk please take the roll?
Carter,
Aye.
Fretham,
Aye.
Mas Castillo,
Aye.
McDonough,
Aye.
Ortega,
Aye.
Reinhardt,
Aye.
McGuire.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so if there are any, I really appreciate all the work everyone's doing on all of these. When we pass it so fast, we don't always acknowledge all the work that goes into it. Just want to remind everyone that if you do have any changes, if you think of something as you're going before our next board meeting, please get it to Jen or Melissa as soon as possible, and also copy myself and Commissioner Matas Castillo on that so that we can address it as a committee, as a working group, as a legislative working group. So please look at as we continue to move forward on the final documents for board approval on the 15th. So with that, thanks everybody for everything that you've done and for the great conversation and the great discussion today. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Director O'Rourke and Finnegan, for your great work. And with that, I see no further discussion. Jen or Melissa, did you have any final comments? Okay, we're good. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks.